Experience a membership that backs your business journey with American Express Business Platinum. When you pay with membership rewards points for all or part of an eligible flight booked with a qualifying airline through Amex Travel, you can get 35% of those points back, up to 1 million points back per calendar year. American Express Business Platinum. There's nothing like it. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum.
Walmart Business saves you time, money, and hassle, which means you can focus on what really matters, like putting the money you save back into what you do, spending more time training your team, filling orders, and finding new clients. Anything and everything, right down to, oh, that's the one, choosing the best hold music. Walmart Business. It's the Walmart you love, now for your business. Learn more at business.walmart.com.
Good morning, Crust. It's a great day to be a bread brother.
Ugh, mornings are not my jam. Or jelly.
Oh, come on. Stop loafing around.
I just woke up feeling hollow inside.
Psst, just grab one of the new Morning Uncrustables sandwiches, like Bright-Eyed Berry or Up an Apple, filled with 12 grams of protein and tons of deliciousness. Crust, what are you eating?
It's just granola, not even yogurt.
No crust, no fuss. Uncrust your mornings.
Hello, it's Martin here, and before we begin, I wanted to let you know that this episode of How We Are the Podcast is sponsored by LiveScore Bet, a proud principal partner of Sunderland AFC. And if you're looking to get started, LiveScore Bet have got a cracking welcome offer for new customers. All you've got to do is bet £10 on sports and get £30 in free bets. It's as simple as that. So, if you're ready to join the action, make sure you're doing it with LiveScore Bet, the home of total betting. This offer is available to new members only, and you need to put a £10 or more bet on sports within 14 days of opening your account. Free bets are valid for 7 days, £20 to use on Sportsbook, £10 on Bet Builder. T's and C's and deposit exclusions apply. Please bet responsibly, and remember it's for over 18s only. Now, on with the show. Welcome to How We're the Podcast, sponsored by LiveScore Bet. It's Martin here, and we've got another Q&A podcast for you today. We had so much fun yesterday covering off all the questions relating to that FA Cup game at Everton. Today we're back with you, delving into a ton of questions about transfers and other interesting things going on at Sunderland AFC. And once again, I've got Kelvin and Andrew with me. Good morning, chaps. Hello, Andrew.
Morning, Martin. Morning, everyone. That last question and answer pod was good fun, so I've come back for another go at it.
Excellent.
Morning.
There's no Ant with us today,
Morning.
but yes, we've got Kelvin. Hello, mate.
Morning, lads. Morning. You can never get too much of a good thing, yeah?
Indeed, you cannot. We'll start with transfers. Now, Skywalker's DeLorean, brilliant name, says, now this is a really interesting one because we've kind of been in this situation before, haven't we, in January, where we're performing really well in the Premier League, we look as if we can kick on. And of course, under Peter Reid, a couple of times, we didn't strengthen in the window. We didn't strengthen in January. I can't even remember if there was transfer windows in place at that point when Peter Reid was there, but we certainly got to Christmas and New Year. We were in a really strong position. And the thought was, if we invested into the team, we could take that next step up, and we didn't. So Skywalker's DeLorean says, do you feel there's a danger if we fail to strengthen this window, we could make the same mistakes as we did during the Peter Reid era? And is this window potentially as important as the summer one was to set us up for the summer one for next season? So it's a kind of a double-edged question there, Andrew. But if we do, I guess we'll take the first part of it first. If we don't invest now, do we risk making the same mistakes as we made, 25 plus years ago?
It's a fine line because we're all able to speak with wisdom after the event and suggest that, yeah, one of the issues Reid had and one of the issues his glory days ended up going sour was because we didn't necessarily strike while the iron was hot. And when we did sign players towards the end of his tenure, they weren't necessarily brilliant transfers. The question there about were windows in place, were windows in place back then? I don't think they were, because Milton Nunes signed later
Right.
on in the season, if I remember correctly. But that name also proves the fact that he'd maybe missed that opportunity to properly strengthen when things were going well. The reason it's a fine line, though, is I don't feel we should just sign for the sake of it. I don't think the club will do that. I think the club are very assured in their plans and will have looked at their options and will have considered things. And I think we will invest this month and we will bring players in, or we'll try to. We'll try to. And if the deals aren't quite right for whatever reason, I wouldn't want the club doing it just because of pressure to do it. If nothing happens this time around, we can afford that and go again in the summer. But in general terms, I think the club will always be looking to rather than stand still, they're always going to be trying where possible to make things happen and keep developing the squad.
And Kelvin, we've seen in the past, haven't we, that traditionally clubs who do lots of business in January, typically those ones who aren't very well run, have a pretty not very well thought out transfer policy because they're reacting to situations. They haven't got a squad strong enough to take them through the rest of the campaign. They're kind of reacting to the current situation. I guess we've got the luxury of, as we talked about yesterday, having that squad depth and also being in a pretty good place in the Premier League. So it's not as if we're going, oh crap, we need to sign another centre half because we've got a whole load of injuries and we're going to really need to scrap in a relegation fight. It's not looking like that. But what we've seen from the club, from this ownership in the past, is that if they feel they can get a player in who's been on the radar for a while, like Romain Mundle a couple of seasons ago, they'll bring that player in, won't they?
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because another question about the transfer window from Rob Ellison, which kind of links to the second part of the previous question, is just how important is the January transfer window for us, not only for the rest of this season to freshen things up and kick things on, but also next season. What's to say the likes of Robin Roofs and Noah Sadiki aren't picked up by a top team in the summer for big fees, of course, and we need succession planning in place, which, it's one of those consequential risks, isn't it, of doing good transfer business, that other clubs are going to come and have a look at the players you've got.
Yeah.
But how do you think they'll approach or are going to approach this window? Do you think it's going to be sort of same again where they'll just keep an eye on their targets and if people become available and things are able to move, they'll pounce, but if that doesn't happen, they're not going to stress about it?
My instinct about that, given what we've seen so far with the current regime, is the targets will already be identified. It'll just be whether they can be bought in for the right fee, and whether they are, the timing of bringing them in. I'll pick one player, John Lukimi. Do we really, really need him right at this moment? Might we need him come next season? Two different questions. I don't think we really do need him right at this moment, especially after what we saw from Luke O'Nien down at Everton. We probably got. I'd like to think that Labrise looked at his performance and thought, I don't need to rush out and bolster the centre-back positions because I've got a lad there that's ready and willing and looks like he can do business. But John Lukimi could be a very good signing for us. I like the look of that lad. He is another left footer. And I do wonder, do we need Aldrit and Lukimi in the same team? I don't know. But it could create a little bit of movement the other way, couldn't it? You could think that, we can afford to maybe, sell one or two of our centre backs as well. The area probably that most concerns me is, I would be concerned about Xhaka, and if there was an injury, I'm certainly concerned that we're heavily reliant on him at the moment. And it's great, he's been great, but we are a bit reliant on him. And if I was being picky about the season so far, I feel that where there's room for strengthening, I'm being careful about my words here, where we could strengthen, definitely, and probably should try to do so, is in our forward line options. I do feel it would be nice to have a natural goal scorer in the to call upon. I would like that, and feel that if there's an opportunity to strengthen there in the January window, we should probably have a pop at that. And I think a winger as well. I do feel the young lads that we've got. I've been a tremendous advocate for Romain Mundle for a couple of seasons now. I've kept saying there's a Premiership player there, but I don't know. I feel like we might need a little bit more there on where wings. It'd be nice to have somebody that could go down either wing. When I think about, I was very, very fortunate as a young boy to watch Dennis Stewart and Billy Hughes flying down the left wing and the right wing, and they could interchange and do both. And it wouldn't be the first time this season where I've thought, be nice to see them two lads flying down our wing in this team. Where you pick these guys up in the January window, I don't know, but I get a sense that there might be an opportunity there with players whose contracts are running down, and maybe it's clubs that think we'd better sell them, or we're not going to get anything for them, so there might be a little bit of an opportunity there. But the way that the club's been operated, I am supremely confident that the targets will have been identified, and that move won't happen if it's not favourable, if it's not deemed as favourable for the club.
And following on from that, Andrew, Nathan Gunn 13 on X has kind of asked a question about the transfer window, but coming from the other side of it. So he says, despite not winning during the AFCON period, we've kept ticking our points tally over. Do you think the club will look at that and decide that we don't need to spend in January, instead knowing that with the AFCON players coming back, we can still kick on? And the big one within that's Diarra, isn't it? Because he's going to be like that proverbial new signing, isn't he? Because we only saw him in a handful of games at the start of the season. The AFCON's probably come at a good time for him, in truth, because over the past few weeks, if he'd been at the club, he might have got a few appearances off the bench, 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there to build up his fitness. And say he's being able to go away, play full games in high-pressure environments, and he should come back, again, touch wood, pretty much ready for first-team action. And, I think we've almost answered this question already, haven't we, in terms of the club? As we've seen, we're not going to see Chris Coleman going out on deadline day and getting Lee Camp and Ashley Fletcher. We're not going to see Stuart Donald on the phone to Wigan in the last hours trying to get a striker and offering him absolutely everything, including his house and his bloody car for Will Grigg. So I think it's going to be one of those things that if the players who we want become available at the right deal for the club, and I think one thing that we've seen during the summer is that the club are prepared to go fast and early for somebody who they want. So there was talk about when Noah Sadiki joined, that other clubs were looking at him, but they thought actually he could do another year playing football in Belgium before he comes over to England. We've gone in and got him. We've maybe paid, there was talk about us paying a little bit too much for certain players at the start of the window just to get them in the door. And, you can argue the rights and wrongs of that in hindsight. And I would say we probably paid not enough for certain players. But we know the club aren't going to react to a situation. They're not in a pressured situation where they need to fill a gap or plug a hole. I think if a player becomes available and we can get them in at the right deal for the club right now, it's not necessarily to come into the team, as Kelvin says, it's not necessarily come into the team on Saturday. They might not actually start playing until the start of next season in regular football, but we can kind of ease them in, get them integrated and get them settled into the club. And I've just got complete confidence and faith in whatever the club want to do this month, they'll get it right.
I'm in a similar position to you. The club think so long term now and have plans B, C, D, and however many more you can think of. I don't think anything that happened whilst those players away will impact our thinking, because we're not reactionary. We're able to react quickly if we need to, but there'll be no knee-jerk reactions from the staff, because they'll have plans in place for players and they will have done all of their thinking and know what their potential is, know how they are behind the scenes, all this type of thing. And one or two games, either slightly better than they anticipate or slightly worse than they anticipate, won't change their general thinking. They would need more evidence. I take the point that, Luke 09 was so good back at the weekend that might give a bit of a different angle on the defender who's playing in Italy, whose name has now completely slipped me by.
John Dusumi.
Yes, that's it. So they will look at every aspect and take it into consideration, but there'll be no snap judgments. These things take time. And I actually think it's very brave from Sunderland, the way they do certain things, because as you say, in some instances, they are moving quicker than other clubs might have done. But it takes a lot of guts to say, no, hang on, we're not going to rush into this. Because there's this whole circus around transfers, and I'm bad for it myself. I love it when there's a transfer. You almost get addicted to that hit of seeing a "here we go" from Fabrizio Romano, or seeing along Sky Sports News the yellow ticket going along the bottom, and when Sunderland are linked, you're like, oh, get in! Isn't this exciting? It's really important and really impressive that the club are able to just kind of ignore that noise and do things for the right reasons. And Martin, you're dead right. They're not going to risk our financial future by making these bizarre and muddled last-minute decisions to bring in a player where, like you say, with Will Grigg, we just keep ringing them up every 10 minutes, up in the offer. We're much smarter than that now. We negotiate things better, and we stick to our, whilst not being too rigid, there's a bit of flexibility, but we do stick broadly to our wider intentions, and that is the right way to run a club, I feel.
No, I think it's absolutely
In
right.
in terms of selling and buying, I always thought I would have loved to have sold a house to Stuart Donald.
I'm surprised you haven't. If anybody listens to our On This Week podcast, they'll know Kelvin's lived in pretty much every place in the world. So, so you probably have sold the house to Stuart Donald. You just forgotten about it. We've got another question related to transfers from Olaf Hagland. And we've mentioned John Dusumi a couple of times in this podcast already. He says, thoughts on the recent links to Ferland Mendy, the Real Madrid left back, and John Dusumi. Now, Mendy is an interesting one because that link kind of emerged on Sunday night, Monday morning. And he's a 30-year-old left back from Real Madrid. I think the fee quoted was 12 million or something like that. He's a French international, obviously. Very injury prone, it seems, when you look at his record. I think he's 30-year-old. He's played about 250 games in his career, so it's not as if he's played tons and tons of football. Personally, I can't see us going after a 30-year-old left back when we've already got a 30-year-old left back in Ronaldo, and you've got Dennis Serkin coming through. I think again, if the club decide to do it, they'll probably get it right. But to my mind, it's probably an easy link to make because Masuaku's looking as if he's going to be leaving the club. He's an experienced left back. I think he was brought in to see which out of him and Ronaldo would kind of win that spot, and obviously there's been a clear winner. John Dusumi is an interesting one because the club obviously really fancied him and were really, really hot on him during the summer, weren't they? And he was continually linked. And it did look during the summer as if it was only a matter of time that deal would get done. There was different spells where there was release clauses or release fees that were in play and then they expired. There was a 12-month extension triggered, so he's still got 18 months of his contract to run, apparently. But you wouldn't be surprised to see him end up at Sunderland at some point because they were so keen on him. And again, that link's re-emerged now. Whether that's just a very easy and lazy link to make right now or there's something in it, who knows? But Andrew, do you think there's a chance of that one coming off? And again, as we talked about earlier, as Kelvin talked about, it's very difficult to kind of see him signing and then coming straight into the team because the centre-backs have done so well. Alderete has done so well, bar his game at Brentford where he was a bit off the boil, but they might be looking for him to compete with Alderete as a left-sided centre-half or who knows. But do you see that one happening?
Yeah, I do. I don't know when, because it's not like a one-time only deal where if you don't sign him now, you're never going to sign him. It might be the case that in the summer, I don't know the lad's contract status. It might be the case in the summer you could perhaps pick a player up a little bit cheaper. But it does appear that this is a player that we have scouted extensively and we feel would fit into the group. And, there's nothing wrong with competition for places. That's how you drive the group forward. And if we do want to achieve things, you can't just have a strong 11. You need a group of 19, 20 who are all excellent in their own right and able to come in and keep competition amongst the players hired. Although they're teammates and they're a group, there is an element of dog eat dog, and you want to get on with the lad sat next to you in the changing rooms, but you also want to be better than him and nick his place off him. So I can see us going in for him and trying to make it happen. Whilst I've not watched him, he sounds like a player that would work well for us. I think he's meant to be a decent option. So, yeah, it's one I could see happening. And just touching on that left back at Real Madrid, that one doesn't make too much sense for me because, we've already got Ronaldo, and you would imagine the club would fancy of having Serkin as his main competition and hoping that Serkin, as he grows older, gets even better. It wouldn't be too long term if we had two fullbacks in their 30s. But just, again, to look at Sunderland being linked with French internationals who play for Real Madrid, and I dare say the fella's probably got Champions League medals and La Liga medals in his sock drawer. The fact that we're being linked with players like that and you don't immediately throw it away is absolute rubbish. It just blows my mind that the position this club are in now. Even if it is just paper talk and it's complete fabrication, the fact that outsiders would look at that and think, yeah, that's half believable, tells you a lot.
No, he's got quite a packed sock drawer, Andrew. He's got 3 La Ligas, a Copa del Rey, 3 Super Cup of Spain's, 2 Champions Leagues, and 2 UEFA Super Cups. So, he's got a few medals in his sock drawer there. So, and again, the thing where we're getting linked to these decorated players, international players from Real Madrid, and you're not going, what? It's believable. You can see it. It's still quite staggering. But the other really intriguing thing with all of this is that there'll have been a number of players that we spoke to or approached in the summer, and they weren't keen to take the leap to a promoted side. They weren't keen to join Sunderland. It's maybe, let's see how it goes for 6 months. We are in such a strong position to go back and have those conversations, and we will go back and have those conversations because the club have a long-term plan with those players, and there'll be some players now who are maybe coming to Sunderland going, that move that we talked about in July, fancy having another conversation about that because we're in such a good position to take advantage of that right now.
It's a totally different ball game, the January window, isn't it? If you're involved in a relegation firefight, are you going to come and sign for a team like that? You've got to be somebody with an absolutely exceptional attitude, I think, to think that that's a place that you want to go and do business. But because we're at where we're at, I think we're a proposition for these players with bucket loads of medals and great track records. We're a proposition for them. I'd still like to think at AKA the model that we're looking at younger players. We're looking at for potential as well as the finished article. I love a younger player, me. I love a young player of potential, and I'd like to think that because we're such a proposition that we can attract some of the best young players of potential to the club as well as part of our succession planning. I hope that I have a feeling that we're still doing that.
Oh, I think we are. And like that kind of goes back to Rob's question earlier, doesn't it, about that succession planning? Because, there is a chance that big offers come in for Robin Roofs and Noah Sadiki, among others, potentially in the summer. And, if the club want to cash in on them, they'll make significant increases in value, won't they? Make significant profit on what was paid for them during the summer. But they're only going to get better and better, and they're still incredibly young. And for them, especially if we manage to get into a European place, either through the Cup or through the league, for them to be playing another season of Premier League football with European football as well, like, there's not that much of a jump they can actually go to unless they go into a Champions League club. Like, look, if Real Madrid come in for Robin Roofs, he's going to go to Real Madrid. Let's make no bones about that. But, elsewhere, it's not as if we're talking about us being a championship club and we've got these players of potential who can step up into the Premier League. The jump that they can feasibly make during the summer isn't as wide or as big as that, is it? So, the fees might be tempting for the club, and the club might want the fees to come in so they can reinvest into more players. But, the proposition that we've got, I know all of us are completely biased in this respect, but you'd be a mug to leave Sunderland right now, I think, if you actually chose to do so. Anyway, we will take a very short break on that note, and we'll be back in a second after a couple of ads.
On December 12th, Disney Plus invites you to go behind the scenes with Taylor Swift in an exclusive 6-episode docuseries.
I wanted to give something to the fans that they didn't expect. The only thing left is to close the book.
The end of an era. And don't miss Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour, the final show, featuring for the first time the Tortured Poets Department. Streaming December 12th, only on Disney Plus.
Whether you bond over streaming binge-worthy videos, watching sports recaps, video gaming, or by unplugging altogether, the 2026 Lincoln Nautilus Hybrid helps keep you connected throughout your journey. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Available connectivity features and functionality vary by model. Package pricing, trials, and term lengths vary by model. Video streaming and games are only available while parked.
I didn't think the pain from the shingles rash would affect simple, everyday tasks like bathing, getting dressed, or even walking around. I was wrong. Though not everyone at risk will develop it, 99% of people over the age of 50 already have the virus that causes shingles, and it could reactivate at any time. I developed it, and the blistering rash lasted for weeks. Don't learn the hard way, like I did. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today. Sponsored by GSK.
Welcome back to How We're, the podcast sponsored by LiveScore Betting. You're joining us for the second part of our Q&A. Now, Andrew, earlier in the first half of this pod, Kelvin was talking about how he'd like to see a couple of additions, or in addition to centre forward, a natural goal scorer in the team, potentially just to supplement what we've got there. And Joe Lewins has asked, looking at the squad and players returning, plus the need to replace players going out, the priority must be a right wing and possibly a central midfielder. I think this is all we need. What are your views?
Well, it's tricky because, yeah, I certainly think a winger is needed, but the term priority, I don't know if the club would see it quite like that because there's so many moving parts. And if a deal for, let's just say a backup goalkeeper, if a deal presents itself, we'll go and do that, and we'll get that done. We won't work down the list of we must sign a winger. Then number 2, we must sign a striker. Then number 3, we must sign. There's just so many factors. So if we do sign a player, it might not necessarily be in a position that we consider as fans as a priority. But I do take the point that should be an area we're spending a bit of time on and looking to see if there's somebody can beef up those options. Central midfield, I'm not too sure about because, yeah, Diarra's due back. And then you look at that, that's some pretty healthy options there. Gertrude's done well in there. Diarra, Lefay, Sadiki, Xhaka. That's a pretty tough little group there. And to sign anybody who we think is going to improve that is going to be really hard. Kelvin, I take your point you said earlier. You're a little bit concerned about Xhaka and what happens if he was to be injured or suspended or whatever. I don't know if you can keep a suitable replacement just waiting in the wings, because if they're good enough to step in and cover for Xhaka, they're arguably good enough to be a starting player, and they're going to blum and cost a load of money. So I don't know. I don't personally feel as if there's much room there. But yeah, a winger, or not necessarily a winger, but a forward, because we do this, don't we? We sign players who aren't like an out-and-out centre forward or an out-and-out winger, but an attacking-minded player who can add to the possibilities there would make a lot of sense.
This lends itself to my oft-said theory that we're only 2 players away from being a cracking team, you know.
We are a cracking team. Don't worry about that. We're already a cracking team.
I think the right wing one's interesting, isn't it? Because we signed Talby, who had got a reputation of playing from the left, and he started the season on the right. We signed Traore on deadline day, and that was obviously 1-year contract, I think. That was obviously let's plug a hole with a short-term fix in that respect. So I think if the right winger becomes available, and the right winger that they want longer term becomes available in January, we will sign another right winger in the next 2 transfer windows, a right winger that will start every week, whether it's in January or whether we just go, okay, we're actually fine going through the rest of the season and we'll get our main target in the summer. I think, again, it all depends on player availability. Centre midfield's interesting. Andrew, I remember you and I did a podcast after one of the pre-season friendlies, and the midfield that night was Noah Sadiki, Habib Diarra, and Enzo Lefay. And we were talking about going, this is the best midfield we're ever going to have seen, because Sadiki had played so well in that more defensive role. Diarra and Lefay were playing off each other and playing really well. And to have somebody, is right to say you got Gertrude who can come into there. You got Chris Rigg, who the club are really keen on and want to develop and all that sort of stuff. And like, how many good quality centre midfield players can you actually carry in the squad? I kind of suspect that if we do sign a longer term replacement for Xhaka, it'll be a young player who they can develop for a season or 2, who can step in for the odd game if injuries or suspensions occur, but is going to be happy playing 5, 6, 7 games a season for the next couple of years while they learn off Xhaka and then step in permanently. And again, they will have targets for that mold of player. And if they become available, they'll bring them in. They'll be on the radar next couple of transfer windows to get that profile of player in. Or they might see Chris Rigg developing there, in which case to go, okay, we'll give Rigg a chance in that position if Xhaka's not there. Or they might see Sadiki's longer term future there. So it all kind of really depends on how the club view it. But one thing I think we can all be certain in, they will have a plan of what to do with that scenario if it does crop up.
Yeah, you're right. There'll be plans for those scenarios, and Chris Rigg could very well be that person that they've earmarked to be the one who over time learns to fill Xhaka's boots. I didn't mention him earlier, but yeah, that wasn't meant as a slight on him. He's got a load of potential. Another thing we need to be slightly mindful of is there's certain quotas you have to fill as you build a squad.
Yeah.
And I believe there's limits on you have to have a certain amount of homegrown players, and you can only have so many foreign players now, I believe. So that is just another little thing to throw into the mix when we're discussing possible names. I wonder if we're potentially getting to those limits now on who we can name in our squad.
And you've also got work
Homegrown-
permits and all that sort of stuff to factor
Of
in
course.
too, haven't you?
Homegrown players, though, could include players that have come from France and Belgium, but have come into our youth system and grown up through that system. I hope I love it that local lads get a chance. You know, that's what when I look at Chris Rigg, I think like a lot of fans, it would be great to see him develop into a top class Premiership player with us. I would love that to happen. I never saw him I've never seen him in the Xhaka position, but I will play around with that in me head, because I was thinking about Sadiki and Diarra, who were I think we mentioned it yesterday about Diarra. I'll feel like a new player when he comes back in, and I'm not sure that we've seen everything that he can do. Watching him at the AFCON, he's all over the place, isn't he, Diarra? He's up front, he's he's on the wing, he's taking the ball off the centre backs in the middle of the midfield. He's all over the place, but so we've never quite seen that. I would feel with us, but that's not it's just the way it's gone for the lad since he signed for us. I'm looking forward to seeing him come back and come in.
Massive. Could be massive, couldn't it?
Kelvin, just to clarify, you mean all over the place in a good way this time, and not like some of the Sunderland players we've seen in the past who've got, oh, crikey, he's all over the place, man. He's useless. You're not digging the fella out there, are you? You're quite impressed with how he's done.
I'm describing him as all over the place in the Bobby Kerr sense. He's here, he's there, he's every bloody where. In a great sense, a Bobby Kerr sense. Think of it that way.
That is very good to clarify. Now, on the pod on Sunday, Andrew, you and Gav were talking about Robin Roofs and where he ranks in terms of great Sunderland goalkeepers. And Kelvin, in the nicest possible way, you've seen more Sunderland goalkeepers than me and Andrew have. So we've got a couple of questions about Robin Roofs. I'm going to throw them to you, Kelvin.
Yeah.
Sunderland Till I Die says... Well, it's kind of a slightly different question, but who would you say is our best signing of the season? Robin Roofs or Granite? I've never seen such a talented team in my lifetime. And LD says, my actual question is, we've had some amazing Premier League goalkeepers down the years. Is Roofs the best? And if not, where does Robin Roofs rank for you?
I've got him about 6th in my list at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
And
you're a hard
that's
man
based
to
on... Well, it's based on keepers that I've seen, and also he has just played half a season for us. But what we've seen, don't get me wrong, what we've seen has been absolutely tremendous. And I think what we can all agree on is his potential. His ceiling, Roof's ceiling, is very, very high. Yeah. So I think he's got the potential to be a very, very, very good keeper. Now, there's a great point being made. I don't know which pod it was I was listening to. The one with James Copley was making a good point about, we had Robin Roofs and Pickford Jordan Pickford on the same pitch, and the difference in styles there between the two of them. Two very, very good keepers. Nobody's going to say it different. But Roofs is so calm under pressure, isn't he? And the only thing I slightly disagreed with from that discussion about Roofs was, that he was calm and he never made a mistake. He did throw 2 balls out that put Granit Xhaka definitely was one of them. I cannot think who the other ball that he threw out. And now I'm not saying that the lad isn't entitled to a mistake. I just think we have to be careful whilst he's having all these great games and showing us what we can do, that he is allowed an error as he goes along his way. But I've got him 6th on my list. He's doing very, very well.
Who's 1 to 5 then? Come on.
Well, we've had this discussion on the goalkeeping top 10 pods. I'll throw a few in there. Well, Jimmy Montgomery, because I saw a lot of his games for us. He's absolutely tremendous goalkeeper. Chris Turner, tremendous keeper. And then we get into the realms of keepers maybe that you lads might have seen. Tony Norman was a very good keeper for us. We've been blessed, haven't we? We've been blessed. I would say that Sorensen, Mingale, Craig Gordon, very, very good. Anybody see that save 43-year-old Craig Gordon made yesterday?
Yeah, brilliant.
On Sunday. I mean, he's still got that fast twitch muscle thing going on that allows him to make those reflex saves from short range. So we've been absolutely blessed, and I think Robin should be pleased that he's being talked about in such exalted company.
I have to say, from my perspective, and Andrew, you can voice your opinion on this one as well. I reckon Roofs probably rivals Sorensen for me at the top. I think you've got to take in the level that they're playing at as well. And Tony Norman, we saw him play one season in top flight. Most of his football was in the second tier for us, wasn't it? I think Robin Roofs, and I completely agree with your point about his age, and we've got to allow him to make mistakes. I don't think this run of form will necessarily keep going to the consistent level it has. There'll be spells where he might have a little dip, and we've got to back him through that. And I think there was one time in the second half at Everton where he came out for a cross, he got nowhere near it as well. So there's going to be little bits like that happen every now and again. He'll make misjudgments with his kicking and throwing and all that sort of stuff. But I just think in terms of potential, when I look at goalkeepers, normally you kind of go, oh, if only he was a bit more dominant in the box. Like when Craig Gordon was here, kind of going, I would just love him to come out and get crosses because he's got the stature to do it. But often he would stay on his line and be a bit sort of in between the goal line and the penalty spot and got caught out a couple of times. Shot stopping, brilliant, as you said, we saw the other day with a fantastic save for Hearts. But I would say, up from my point of view, I think the first keeper I saw play for us was Ian Hesford, so I had a relatively low bar to start from. But I would say between Sorensen and Roofs would be up at number one for me at present. What do you reckon, Andrew?
That low bar's pretty pertinent to goalkeepers, isn't it?
Oh, Kelvin, you've stolen me joke. I was going to say
Seamus McDonough.
I was going to say, was that who you had at number 7, Kelvin? I'm gutted. Tony Norman will always be my favourite. That's the sentimental thing, and the fact that I spent my childhood throwing myself around, pretending I was Tony Norman. He was always my favourite. But some of those names you've mentioned in your top 6 there, Kelvin, I think you are very hard to please. If you've not, I genuinely think I've got Roofs now ahead of Mignolet and Sorensen and Craig Gordon. They're quality goalkeepers and they did some really good stuff for us. I'd put Roofs in ahead of them already with the potential to get even better. Martin's dead right. You're not going to have a goalkeeper who literally does not make an error. That's the nature of the position. There's going to be things that don't work out. And even if you make the right decision, you might come for a cross, for example. If somebody else nips in before you, it doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't have gone for it. Just happens that the striker was half a yard faster or whatever. So I think Roofs is superb for us. And Kelvin, you said he's only had half a season for us, but in that half a season, he's already made more clean sheets than some goalkeepers have in years in the Premier League for us. And in 5 minutes at Everton, he saved more penalties than some Sunderland goalkeepers have in a whole career. He's for me, he is top class. I love him, and I love his character as well. He's very, very laid back off the pitch, but on the pitch, he doesn't mind, calling somebody out if he doesn't think they're doing what they need to.
Yeah. There was a bit of that going on Saturday, wasn't there? He was given out on Saturday at one point.
And
yeah.
for a lad
He's a good goalkeeper. He's good.
Tell you what, for a lad who'd played one season of professional football before coming to a newly promoted club in the Premier League and performing the way he's done in front of the crowd, he's moved country, played in front of bigger crowds than he's ever played in front of in his life, played in front of a whole new defence that's been just put together. So that defence don't even have the understanding between them at the start of the season. I think he's done unbelievable, mind-blowingly well, because he's just got everything. There's not one bit of his game that you look at go, he's got a weakness there. Often goalkeepers go, well, he's brilliant at this, but he struggles a bit on crosses, or he struggles a bit. I just think he's got everything. He's got a great temperament. As I say, great comparison with Jordan Pickford on Saturday. Like Pickford, I love Pickford now. If and when Roofs goes, I would love to see Pickford come back for a couple of seasons just to finish things off, because he kind of got that lovely romanticism of football again. But in terms of character, Jordan Pickford can lose it and get distracted by things that are going on around him. Roofs always looks, even if he's dishing it out, he always looks composed. He always looks as if he's doing things deliberately and on purpose, rather than just kind of flying off the handle. And I think that's such a good quality for goalkeepers. Absolutely fantastic. Another question we've got from Mike at Corley Terrace says, loving the season so far, with so many games have been fine margins of 1 or 2 goals and bad for the nerves. With a favourable run of games coming up and the AFCON boys back, isn't it time that we had a big win? Now, Kelvin, this gets me quite nervous, thinking that we should be not just winning, but winning big over the next few weeks. And I think when you look at our sort of style of play, and even when you look back to Regis Lebris's time in charge in France, he's not a manager who typically goes out and gets big wins. Even last season in the Championship, we won games by 1 or 2 goals, didn't we? I think there's only a handful of occasions where we scored more than 2. So is it realistic to think that we're going to win big anytime soon?
I mean, it would be great, wouldn't it? It would be.
Oh, it'd be lovely. That's not questionable, is it? It would be lovely to win big, but I'm not sure.
Well, I was working my ticket on the bus coming home on after the game at Everton, and I had a couple of lads behind me were almost apoplectic at me because I compared Reggie Lebris to Jack Ross and said, he's got a way of, he goes ahead and he's just got a way of, like, it looks like he likes to shut the game down, and he's happy to win 1-0 and defend, and I was just working my ticket a little bit,
That does surprise me, Kelvin.
But I find I find this, I don't think Lebris, when he puts a team out there, even though he's got plan A, plan B, plan C, I don't think there's anywhere in his list of options that he says, well, we've got this plan to win 5-0, I don't think that's the way that he thinks about the game, is my impression. I don't know the lad, but watching his teams, I think he's quite happy to go ahead in the game, to get ahead in the game, and then to make it really, really difficult for teams to better with. And I don't know. Is it? Do we need to educate ourselves to that? Do we need to harden ourselves to, to remember in my day, we Arsenal, in the 70s used to have this label leveled at them, a chant that the crowds used to say. I can remember singing for Arsenal when they came to us. and the chant was 1-0 to the Arsenal. They just used to win all these games 1-0 or win by a goal, and I kind of feel that that's where we're at the moment. This is the kind of team that we are, and you can't argue with the results. Really, we're playing in the top tier. We're playing against top-class teams. When you think about that game against Man City, both at their place and then quickly again at our place, two contrasting results, coming out the ground from that Man City game, that nils each draw at the Stadium of Light. I don't think I've ever been prouder of my team in my life. It was a nils each draw, but it was fantastic. And a fantastic game of football, actually, to give Man City their due. Man City, I keep saying this about them, when they haven't got the ball, they're working their bollocks off to get it back. There's not too many prima donnas in that Man City team. And I think what made that game so great was we had the same thing going on. When we didn't have the ball, we were working really, really hard to make sure that nothing happened. And I think that's the kind of team we are at the moment. Does that evolve? With a different manager, would that change? I'm guessing it might, but I'm happy to try and calm down when I'm watching the game. I'm happy to try and see out these 1-0, one goal advantages, and do my best just to get behind the lads, the defensive effort to keep the advantage. I think it's an education. You see, you could argue, Saturday, 89th minute, we got a penalty awarded against us in the 89th minute, and a victory turns into a draw if that's a league game. Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying? So maybe says it is good to go out and score goals when you're on top. We could have done that in the first half. We could have gone for the game a little bit more. I don't think we actually stopped going for the game in the first half. I think we kept a good pace, so we kept a lot of the ball. It was just in the last third that the problem was. We played some lovely football, great interpassing. And it was just in that last third that it didn't quite pan out. Okay, it's a little bit of a chess game, isn't it, with Libri? There's little pieces that still need to fall into place.
But look, I think
and maybe then we do win by 2 goals.
I think if you're looking at where we are in the context of the season, all that sort of stuff, I think you can maybe say we've been a little bit picky about this. But Andrew, I think Lebris said after the Everton game that we could have been better after we'd scored. We could have got that second goal. We could have done a bit more. And I think this probably ties into the talk that we had earlier about the transfer window and where we need to strengthen, because I was looking on Saturday, I'm thinking, well, the wingers are actually losing the ball in decent positions. We're not actually getting past people or getting the ball in, and the moves are often breaking down when they go out wide. And, potentially that's an area that the Brits is kind of going, well, actually, we need better quality in there to create more chances for the strikers. We weren't getting the ball into the box too much. But look, this is a side that's built on structure. It's built on defensive solidity. It's built on players knowing what to do out of possession as well as in. And I think that side of it is fantastically good. We've got some great stuff going on. Again, when you're looking for areas of improvement, it's those things that we're doing when we have got the ball. And I think Lebris's whole setup relies on us taking advantage of opportunities when we do have the ball. And he's not, he's said he's not completely content with what we're doing in that regard. But when you look through the fixtures, I was just scrolling back through the fixtures there just to remind myself of the games that we played. And there's actually not many games that have finished 1-0 to us. Obviously the game against the visitors did, and it would be lovely to beat them 5-0. I'm not saying any different. But, you had the West Ham game 3-0 at the start of the season. Burnley, we got beat. Brentford home game, we scored a winner in the last minute, and that was a tough game. The Villa at home game, Crystal Palace away with draws, which were were hard-earned and well-deserved. The Forest game, a 1-0 away win. Again, when you're playing away from home, you're going to have the opposition come on to you, try to get that equaliser in front of the crowd. We held off. Man U game, we got beat 2-0. Wolves at home, we won 2-0. That was a game that, look, it would be nice to get a few more goals earlier, but we got that second goal eventually. Chelsea away, we won. Everton at home, we drew. Arsenal at home, we drew. So, you're not talking about a string of results where it's been actually really nervy at the end of it. It has been nervy, but for the kind of almost the right reasons. Like 3-2 against Bournemouth, it was nervy then, but brilliant because we had such a good comeback. So, look, I think it'd be lovely to smash a few more goals in and win games, but I think that'll come. I think that's kind of the next bit of the jigsaw to fall into place.
Yeah, again, I'm of a very similar frame of mind to yourself. It will happen in time, but just like when we were talking about transfers, the club are looking at the bigger picture and they're happy to look down the line, and that is it's a nice thing to have, but not necessary just yet. At the moment, we attack as much as we need to, if that makes sense, because you don't get more points for winning 5-0 compared to 1-0 or 2-0. And we need to make sure we can walk before we run. So that structure has been really important to us and has been one of the reasons why we've picked up so many points. There's been teams in the Premier League in the past who've arguably been more attacking than Sunderland for longer periods in the game, but they all get the compliments, they get patted on the head because at the end they've lost 3-2 or whatever. They've scored a couple of goals, they've excited the neutral, but they've come away with nought. Whereas Sunderland are an entirely different proposition. So yeah, we could do better in certain areas. We could do this, we could do that, but it's not a desperate need. It's not a case of if we don't if we don't start scoring more goals, we're relegated. It's something to develop over time. We are talking at it from the context of a really, really good team, and how do we turn that into an excellent team rather than we're a dreadful team and we need to start doing something. So I'm happy to let that play out and excited to see how we develop. I also like the fact that the person who sent in that question has given us his address. I think, what was it, at Coley Terrace? I know Coley Terrace. It's near to where I grew up, and I knew a couple of people who lived on there. It's a nice street. I like that style of house. And I think everybody from now on should just tell me where they live before answering their questions, just so I can get a little picture of who they are and where they are.
I think it's really interesting when you look at some of the records from last season, right, compared to this. So we've scored 21 goals and conceded 22 in 21 games. So we're pretty much conceding and scoring one per game. Southampton last season conceded 86 from 38 games and obviously went down. Ipswich scored 36, so almost a goal a game, conceded 82. So you've got to get your defence right, and then you can build on it. I think it's exceptionally hard if you're scoring a number of goals to then become, if you're scoring a lot of goals and conceding a lot of goals, to change your game to be defensive, because that's a whole shift in how you play. If you try to change your game and you're not conceding many, but you're not scoring many, it's probably more of a little tweak here or there in the attacking third to change that. So I think we're building in the right way. Look at Spurs last year. Scored 64, conceded 65, finished 17th with 38 points. Like, you don't get the points by scoring more goals over the course of the season. You get the points by, obviously, I know it's a completely obvious statement to make, but scoring more than the opposition in that game. And if that's a 1-0, then I will take that absolutely every single day of the week. Two very quick questions to finish off with. Rob Lowe at Rob Lowe 23, Kelvin says, we're currently mid-table. Where do you think we'll finish? And could we make a late European push? So come on, get your Mystic Meg crystal ball out and tell us where
I think we've definitely got the potential to creep in to a late European push if things go. We need a few things to go in our favour, but things like Diarra coming back fired up and almost like a new player, the January window, injuries play out the right way for us. Roofs continues his ascent, and I think we've got the potential. We've got the potential to have a real good night on the tiles at the end of the season.
Very good, Kelvin. Very good. And Andrew, that run of games, it always makes me nervous when on paper people are saying we've got a favourable run of games, because I'd rather we weren't favourites. We had a tough challenge, and we will have a tough challenge, but I never like us being favourites. But that run starts against Crystal Palace on Saturday. And Steve Richards at Stitcho Steve asks, does Ronaldo come straight back in for that game?
Good question. And I'm not sure. You could make an argument for Serkin staying in the team. He's done well, as I think Kelvin said previously. Rather than sit on the fence, though, I probably would bring Ronaldo in, because he's been one of our best performers over the whole course of the season. Serkin has done well. He's looked good and has suggested there's more to come from him. But if he wants to do that, he'll just have to keep plugging away and trying to fight to get back into the team. I would stick with Ronaldo. I really like him. I think we look brilliant with him in the defence. It's funny, we talk about our solidity, but we have made changes to our defence virtually every game for one reason or another. Yeah. So the work on the training ground's been good to make sure everybody's integrated into the plans. But yeah, I like Ronaldo. I think he's been a fantastic signing for us, and he's one of our leaders on the pitch. He is a more senior player. He brings a little touch of experience. So no problems with Serkin whatsoever. I'd love it if he signed a contract. I don't quite know what's happening there. I don't know the background. But at the moment, yeah, let's get Ronaldo back in, and hopefully he'll be flying.
Excellent. Well, that wraps things up for us today. So thank you, Andrew.
No, thank you. I love these pods. I love that people take the time to get in touch. And yeah, I always say it, but it's just great to be having a bit crack on and a bit of a laugh talking about Sunderland.
It sure is. And thank you, Kelvin, as always.
Thanks very much, lads. Robin Roofs, number 6 on my best goalkeeper list. There you go.
We'll see where he is in a couple of weeks' time. We'll revisit that one before the end of the season, see if we can get Kelvin to change his mind. So thank you, Andrew. Thank you to Kelvin, and thank you to everyone for listening. And remember, if you've got a question for the lads to answer next week, just email awaythepodcast, safc@gmail.com, or look out for the social media posts on X on Sunday, and we'll stick them into the show next week. We'll be back tomorrow as we begin the build-up to that game against Crystal Palace. And as you've heard from Andrew, Ronaldo will definitely be in the team for that one. But until then, it's goodbye from us.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
AdQuick brings modern workflows to out-of-home advertising. From planning to launch, AdQuick makes every step simple and efficient. Brands can activate billboards, transit, and digital screens worldwide with unprecedented speed, all backed by real attribution. Bring your brand into the future with AdQuick.